So let's talk value to friction. This is a lesson I learned the hard way. So I ran a machine learning startup before. We were giving suggestions to salespeople and marketers, but we needed all this human input. And they had to do all this work to give information to the system. When they did that, they got amazing results. Guess what? No one used it. So they ended up changing the dynamic, so they gave far less input and they got far worse results, but they were good enough that they used it all day long and got a ton of value. And it's almost as if we told everyone here, hey, there's a pot of gold in the bay. You've got to swim in there and get it, or just like hit this button and you can get $10 every time you do it. People are going to hit the button. So there's a value to friction ratio that really is about user experience. So I'd love to ask the panelists their perspective, and all the way down like from Min, knowing like what you're seeing from an investment perspective, Tom at Portis, knowing how you're changing that dynamic to get people into systems, Roneil, how you've managed to do that to get the results you have, and Dennison from developer perspective, how are we, obviously the same thing's happening. We're getting far more and more developers in the space every month. So.
Yeah, I think it's our opinion that this is why events like this, like all the ETH global hackathons as well, is so important because as an investor I have quite a broad view of the ecosystem. There's so many brilliant minds that are building amazing things, but are they products? Are they features? Are they components? Are they standalone businesses? You could have something that is technically absolutely necessary, for someone to build on top on, but it can't really stand up on its own. Which is why we think collaboration is such an important thing in this space. And oftentimes it's not a technical issue, it's really a coordination issue and more people talking to each other and thinking about how they can use each other's components, and also talking to users to really figure out what's valuable to them. So you're actually building with the user as opposed to just with a top-down approach.
And something unique about Portis is the fact that we need the DApp to integrate us as opposed to just expecting the users to have it installed. And that gives us a great insight into the pain points of the developers. And we also, our approach is that we need to work the hardest as a Web3 provider, then the DApp, then the user. So we're not just making life easier for users, it's also for the DApp developers so they can make life easier for the users, but also down the line we're thinking of tools that can help them. The same thing you have in Web2, just kind of keep track of what's going on in your application, what can you improve, etc. So that's also something that we're seeing, that we got to help the devs as well, not just the users.
Yeah, so I think the way you framed it as this value to friction trade-off ratio is the right way in our opinion, right? Like you have to kind of, based on the use case, consider like what level of friction is reasonable, right? Like if I am interacting with my bank account, I probably want some friction there. I don't want someone to be able to wire my life savings away without, me having a say in that. But on the flip side, different apps have different needs, right? And something that has frustrated me a lot in this space is folks often want to treat any wallet, key, whatever, equally, and I don't think that's actually the right approach here. So. At Audius, we've been able to use a combination of three things to effectively kind of obscure the fact that crypto is here while still letting users get all of the benefits that decentralization provides here, right? In that we don't actually, as a company, nor no other company has custody of their key, and no one can take actions on their account without their consent. But those three things are using meta transactions for all of the on-chain stuff, built actually on a lot of the work that OpenZeppelin did, among many others, like the Meta Cartel folks and others. But we use meta transactions for everything that goes on-chain. We have a gas-paying relay that is centralized but trustless. We'd like to migrate towards gas station network over time as well, but this was just the faster way to get something out right away. And it is trustless. And then the third piece of this puzzle, and what kind of brings this all together, was we made this little homegrown wallet thing we call Hedgehog Wallet, but it's kind of inspired a lot by Austin Griffith's work on Burner and some other folks' work, but effectively you can generate a wallet client-side, encrypt it using a username password the user provides client-side. That password never has to go anywhere else. but then that encrypted seed can be persisted in a centralized server in a trustless way, such that if someone signs in on a new machine, the machine pulls down that encrypted wallet seed, decrypts it locally, accesses their account. So by doing those three things together, users can effectively do direct on-chain interactions in Audius without like having a Coinbase account and buying ETH and putting it into their MetaMask and writing down their 12-word seed phrase and yada, 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 right? And for our use case, that works, right? Because this is currently Audius is a purely non-financial use case. Artists are sharing content for free. Users are listening to it for free, and this works. As we add in payments and other things, I think we can. That's when, from a product perspective, you can guide users towards more secure alternatives than something very primitive like what we have today, right? I think it's important to, over that user life cycle, guide them towards what might be the best choice in that stage. And that's where Web3 comes in, right? Because this is all of these tools are interoperable, all of these wallets are interoperable. Us as a DApp, like we want to work with every wallet, and we do right now support MetaMask and Coinbase wallet, any Web3 injected wallet. But if you don't have an injected wallet, we can fall back to our client-side one. So yeah, I think that's kind of how we've gone about this so far. But
I'd actually take a little bit of a different approach on that, on the idea of like friction. And sort of as developer advocate, I would actually say that maybe a lot of these solutions, the friction actually comes with the developers in terms of success. Something we don't really think about so much is that developers are the best evangelists for their products. And my sort of personal point of view is that our critical job is to bring as many developers into this ecosystem as possible. Because as people build cool things, they go out and spread the word, right? I would argue that people use DeFi applications because friends of people with a lot of ETH build something cool and say, hey, check it out, you can make more money on your ETH, friend, and then they use it, and that sort of starts to build the critical mass. I think all these applications, as developers, you are the best sort of representative of what you're doing, certainly if you're not like invested heavily by VCs in the beginning. So from the friction point of view, I would say that beyond the technical aspect, which is incredibly important, it's also the fact that we are waiting to find that developer, which I think is already here, that creates that critical mass around themselves, around their product, and thus, sort of that friction that you talked about, pressing that button, becomes more a question of like, I want to participate in this thing that this friend of mine or person I know who other people say is cool is doing.